On a train, in a bus, in a car, on the way to your job. All alone with your kids, with your wife, or with your dog. You can listen anywhere, you can listen everywhere. To the Philip Maloney podcast.
Hi, welcome back to the latest installment of the Philip Maloney podcast. I'm very pleased to be joined by Dr. Petra Deeter, I believe is how you pronounce it. And she is the founder of Victim to Hero Institute. And we're going to find out a lot more about her institute and a little bit about herself in recognition and awareness for Parental Alienation Day, which is on the 25th of April. So I'm currently sporting the the UK or the, I suppose, global. I mean, it has no boundaries. But on the 25th of April, we're going to be using this week to recognize everything that's going on with parental alienation. So without further ado, I introduce you to Dr. Petra Deeter. So welcome.
Hi, thank you so much for doing this, Philip. Really appreciate it.
No problem at all. Did I get the pronunciation right? I'm so
it's Petra Deeter.
Petra
okay.
Deeter. Lovely.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's wonderful. Well, Petra, I know a lot of the viewers and listeners know exactly who you are because you're quite prolific around this scene of parental alienation. So tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about your organization.
Sure. So my background is actually as a filmmaker. Well, sort of the most recent is a filmmaker, and I came to this when I became aware that I was a victim of parental alienation. I was a child and grown up to become aware of it too late. By the time I found out, my father has passed, unfortunately. Luckily, when I found out, I actually went and Googled for my father's name, and I actually found a website that my father created for me. And that actually really helped me with my healing process. And then so I went in and thought, okay, I'm a filmmaker. I'm going to make a documentary film to tell my story through other people's stories. So I thought I would just, find maybe 4 or 5 people, hopefully I can find 4 or 5 people if I'm lucky, right? And then, I interviewed them and put together a documentary film. Well, the next thing I knew, I started to tell people, hey, I'm doing this film. And hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of victims came through and said, hey, this is my story. And I mean, you would have thought, like, people usually think that, if you say you make a film and people go to you, people might say that, oh, because they want to be famous, like this and that.
Sure.
No, it's none of this. A lot of, actually, the majority of the victims that came to us said, I don't want my name out there. I don't want to be shown. I just want you to hear my story because I want you to understand this problem. So they genuinely just want me to know the story. And so the next thing I knew, we interviewed over 700 cases now, and we had, I think, just as many in our waiting list. And I just thought, oh my God, this problem is so huge. It's so much bigger than I initially thought. And I mean, for me, my problem I thought was huge. Oh my God, the kind of problems and the kind of pain that is out there. And really, my heart aches for these parents and for these children that are now adults who finally realize the horrific experience that they went through, and now that they look back, they all can say that that's child abuse. So then as I was working on this documentary film, and we are still working on that film right now, I've started to interview experts, and I started to learn a lot more, doing a lot more research about the subject. And then I thought, this is ridiculous, because a film is a 90 minutes film. It's going to take me a long time to finish. I mean, typically a documentary film takes between 5 to 7 years to complete. We are hoping to finish it in 2 years. So hopefully by the end of this year, the film's going to be out, because we started this from last year. But still, it takes a long time. And by the time it's out, it's only 90 minutes long. It can do something, but it's not enough.
Yeah.
And that's why I thought, okay, while I'm interviewing experts, while I'm learning about it, I want to share with other parents out there, other victims out there, so that it can actually have further impact than just the film. And that's how Victim to Hero Institute was born. And it started with an interview with Dr. William Burnett, who is the founder and president of the Parental Alienation Study Group. And
Yeah.
then it just kind of grew from there. Yeah.
Wow. So what a really noble and organic way of growing through adversity. Really, I find that quite compelling. It's great. It's great that you're in the movie industry, etc. To be able to do that. Fascinating that you put your story out there, and then all of a sudden there was 700 people in the same boat saying, "Hi, this is my story as well." And it's it leads me to my second question, really, around what's happening in the USA around parental alienation. What seems to be the uptake? Do you think it's gathering pace at the moment? Has there been any issues? Are you confident about the future around parental alienation in the USA or globally?
Well, like I think something you brought up when you introduced this talk, right? And you mentioned that this is really a global problem, and that is so true, right?
Mm.
I mean, we all see this. This is unfortunately a type of abuse that does not discriminate. It doesn't matter where you are. It doesn't matter how rich you are, how educated you are, what race it doesn't matter. It doesn't discriminate at all. And unfortunately, so this is really a global problem. So what we're seeing in the US and worldwide is that we unfortunately have a lot of challenges ahead of us. And I'm saying it in terms of challenges in all levels. And so you're looking at the highest level, which is the society level. There's such a lack of awareness on the problem, and you know this. When you say the word parental alienation, a lot of people will look at you and go, what? They have no idea what it is. And it's worse than that, is that if you have someone that heard about a child rejecting a parent, they immediately assume that that parent has done something wrong, that that parent is a bad parent in some way. So it's so counterintuitive. So not only there's a lack of public awareness, there's a huge misunderstanding out there. On top of that, there's a lot of misinformation out there that's saying parental alienation is not real, parental alienation is not scientific, parental alienation is only a tool that abusive fathers use in order to take custody away from mothers. So there's a lot of challenges that we are facing ahead when it comes to society level. When you come to the system level, we have so much challenges ahead of us as well, because the system is so inadequate in recognize the problem and finding the solution and protection for the people that the system is designed to protect, which is the children and the victim of abuse, right? So we're talking about system, and it's so inadequate and it's so inconsistent. You can look at certain people that successfully be able to defend their case and get their children back, but there's a lot of people, I mean, when you're talking to parents out there, a lot of people felt like their voices and their story are not heard, and that the system just destroyed their family. And that's really unfortunate, and that has a lot to do with the next level down, which is the industry level, which is we don't have enough, I guess, support in, we need to, a lot of professionals don't get this. Like I talk to so many parents, they're like,
please, I mean, drill down on that, that sort of institutional problem that you see in your work, like social services, things like
exactly.
family court. I don't know if you have it in the USA, but sort of court-appointed
Yes.
advocates for the children, etc.
Yeah, exactly. Like all the professionals, right? You're talking about, so in the US, there's a role that they call the guardian ad litem, which is a professional person, usually a lawyer that is appointed by court to supposedly represent the child. the child's interest. And then, you sometimes have parenting coordinator, which is somewhat similar, and then mediator. Essentially, these are the people that supposedly neutral parties in the middle, right? And then you talk about lawyers who are representing these parents that are victims.
Yeah.
I mean, like, you're talking about all these professionals are not at all informed. I mean, majority of them are not informed at all with parental alienation. And so you end up with the situation where parents go to look for protection for their children, and you have these people that supposedly representing the children, and they don't know what parental alienation is. And it's so counterintuitive that they look at this thing and they think, oh, whoa, the child rejects the parent. Let's help the child reject the parent. Instead of let's reunite this family. Something is wrong here. A 2-year-old boy is not going to reject the parent. Of 4 years, they don't understand that rejection could potentially be a result of manipulation and brainwashing from someone else, and that's a huge problem. And so we have that industry problem, right? And until we can change that, when we have enough education to change that, it's going to be very hard for us to change the system, because the lawyers don't get this. The lawyers are the one eventually going to get voted to be judges. The judges don't get this. And then the lawmakers, guess what? Who are the lawmakers? The lawmakers are not professional. If the professionals don't even get it, how can the politicians get this? It's very difficult for them to get it. On top of that, we talk about the misinformation that I talked earlier about the society level, the lack of public awareness and misinformation. So now you have lawmakers that don't get this, and so we don't have laws that clearly two problems with the law, right? One is that we don't have enough clear law that will hold the parental alienation abuser accountable. Like, they don't recognize that as child abuse. It's not
so
consistent.
Things like false allegations, etc.
Right, on top of that, and then there's another thing about is the lack of enforcement. So like you just brought up about false allegation. False allegation is like the signature textbook moves, right, by the alienators. Parental alienators very often, especially in the severe cases, will use false allegation in order to abuse the system, right? So they will create allegation of sexual abuse, physical abuse, all type of things, or or neglect, or mental instability, all that kind of false allegation to drag the other parent through the court system to try to defend themselves. And then when they did finally defend themselves and prove that these allegations are false, that are completely wrong, the system does not have anything to hold these people accountable. There's no perjury. There's nobody say, hey, you create a false allegation, you should go to jail for that. You should pay a fine for that. You should, you should lose your custody for that. Nobody do anything. It just, when it's proven, people just go, oh, okay, that was a false allegation.
Yeah, and then they expect you to just sort of carry on through the system. So if you were to take a timestamp of where we are today and look at applying all of these potential solutions or expect an understanding from the industry of family courts, etc., how difficult would that be to bring clarity and to bring understanding to those services with a stamp time point today, given that there's no throughput of understanding for where we are now?
Well, I know that I sound sort of like pessimistic, but I wanted to say that it's not impossible. I do see that the future, we will get to a point where we can prove this to be, we can have the clear solution. Because I mean, when you look back, like, right, major things like in the past, in the history, you look at, for example, for the longest time, everyone was smoking and considered that to be okay. Nobody agreed that smoking caused lung cancer. It took a lot, and it took at all level, right? It took the industry, like the research, the scientific lab community, the public awareness, the lobbyists, the activists, the lawmakers, all observed. Everybody has to move for it to change, but it did change. And I want to say that I truly believe we can reach the solution for this problem. It's not impossible, and we are making progress. For example, we do see progress in scientific field. We see more research, we see more data, we see more outcomes. We do see judges that do see the problem. So, for example, for us this weekend, like you mentioned, on Sunday is April 25th, is a Parental Alienation Awareness Day. That's a whole day. We had 7 separate sessions on that day. It's a whole day event that parents can join. It's entirely free. It's live on Facebook, and 7 different sessions. And all we're going to be talking about is solution for this. And we're bringing in experts in the field. We're bringing in adult children. We're bringing in advocates from around the world. So we have 7 separate, and even celebrities are coming in to talk about their opinion. So yeah, we have a whole day long of events that coming from all different perspectives, because that's what we're trying to do, is to bring awareness and to bring solution. So I'm not saying that what I'm trying to say is a lot of people are working on this, and it's not impossible for us to get to a solution. I don't think it's too far away either. I do think that it's going to take a lot of work. I do think that it's not going to be easy. I think that it is challenging. The other things that I think is very important, and I do want to send this message of hope, is that at the personal level, I mean, we were talking about all the other higher level, like the system, the society, and the professional industry. What at the personal level, you as a parent, as a targeted parent, there's a lot that you can do to take control of your case, that you can get over whatever challenges that are being thrown at you. There are skill set out there that you can use to help to save your children. And I know that a lot of parents felt helpless. They feel like, they have to reach out and try to find other people to help, but you yourself can be the hero. And that's why we call ourselves victim to hero. We want you to get out of the victim mentality and get to a point where you can be the hero for your own case. And parents, this is entirely possible, and that's why we are creating so much resources for parents. Multiple times a week, we have all these free programs so that parents can get trained in all aspects of how to handle parental alienation. We brought in, forensic psychologists, clinical psychologists, lawyers, scientists, all type of people to help you learn about, the psychology in your child's mind. We bring in people that have won their cases so they can share their strategy. We brought in adult children so they can share their stories, so you can understand how to talk to your children. So there's a lot of resources out there that parents can help themselves.
Yeah, and I think you do a really good job on your website and on your Facebook page to really advocate for those areas. I noticed that you're, as part of your up and coming events as well, you've got a quite an impressive panel of litigators coming up as well, which is really something that I'm going to look forward to having a look at, because one of the things that I try and get my head around with parental alienation is, sometimes you have there's so many different perceptions going on. There's a school of thought that says, it's the solicitor's fault, it's the court's fault, and they're perpetuating, what's happening within the family construct. There are people that are saying it's the industry, it's the social services, they want to perpetuate what's going on with the family construct. So it's kind of in the best interest for this chaos to arise. And so I think it's really fascinating that you've got a panel of litigators, certainly, and I love some of the work that you do in regards to the children of parental alienation and their stories as well. So these are all really, really fascinating little insights into the world of parental alienation. So, obviously that being said, and I suppose you're going to go on to it more in regards to your podcast on Sunday, but if you can give us a brief snippet on where you see the changes coming from, what's the sort of what's the undertone of solution for your conversations that are going to be happening around Sunday?
Well, I don't think that changes is coming from one place. I think it's
Mhm.
coming from all directions. It's coming that's what I was saying. It's coming from all levels,
Mm.
and there are a lot of people are working on this. And what you just mentioned right now about how people feel like it the family court system that fail, it the lawyers that fail. I mean, I will say that there's some element of truth in that, because clearly the system is designed in a way that is benefit lawyers. So the more adversarial your case, the longer your case is going to be dragging out, the more the lawyer is going to earn. So obviously the system is designing in a way that is actually not in the best interest of the victims. And then you do see, for example, I'm not sure about in the UK, but in the US, in anyway, when the case that have higher child support, the state will earn more income based on that. So clearly, the more adversarial the case, then the higher the child support payment is going to be, then the state is going to benefit more. So really the system
Mm.
in some way is not creating is not correctly structured. It's built in a way that really not in the best interest of the victims. So I do see certain element of truth in that. But I do want to say though, is that we cannot stay at that place of the victim, because if you just say, oh, it's the system that failed and the lawyers are crooked and the judges are corrupted, we're going to be at a very helpless place as a
Mhm.
victim, and you will not be able to help your child. So you have to get out that mentality, and you have to believe in yourself. You can be the hero. Take the driver's seat. And we've done this. We have helped many parents with this. We have seen other parents that have done this. It's possible. What you need though is the right type of skill set, and that's why I was saying about, like, we need to go and really understand that you are in a very complex situation. You're not in a normal situation here. This is not a normal divorce. This is not a normal parenting range.
Mm.
You're in a particularly unique situation, and you better be prepared for it. You can't just sort of walk into a battlefield and not having the right kind of weapons and equipment. And so that's what I'm trying to say. And for parents, that means, education. Don't leave your fate and your children's fate in the hand of the lawyers. Don't just count on them. Get educated so that you can pick the right lawyers, so that you can be in charge of your case. Even if you have a lawyer, you can be in the driver's seat. You need that. The
Yeah.
other things that you mentioned about events, I want to bring up that in on June 4th, we have a
Mhm.
particularly interesting event on June 4th. On that day, we actually it's actually an event by the American Bar Association, which is huge. This is an association that has all the lawyers and all the judges in the U.S., right? So this is their event, but they have given us the permission to stream this event to our audience. So on June 4th, you will see two judges on the panel and two lawyers that are going to be speaking about how to fight parental alienation cases in court. And if you see judges on a panel, that tell you that the judges do get this. It's
Yeah.
not impossible to fight this. It's possible, and we've seen many cases. And I mean, the people that we interview, we bring in lawyers here and there and experts. These are the people that we have vetted and found that they have won cases for
Mm.
parental alienation cases in the district level as well as the appellate court levels. So it's possible to win.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and I think that the ABA was the one I was alluding to previously with all the lawyers on it. It sounds really fascinating. Actually, I'm gonna definitely be tuned in on that one. I'd like to see what they have to say around the issue, certainly. So with that description that you gave us there before about having the right tools and the right armory, etc., it's somewhat reactive because you're already in there, and a lot of people find themselves bamboozled by this whole process. It almost feels like it's too late at that point. What I wanted to ask you, and to see if there were any sort of conversations were around, was having this issue of parental alienation. How do we get this into the wider psyche of society so that it doesn't even come to that point where people sort of find themselves, baffled and bamboozled by this um, uh, by this set of circumstances that are seemingly presenting themselves, but then after the event, they know that that was a pre-constructed playbook that, you know, at least 700 people that you've interviewed have all been through themselves, and it's been happening for, you know, decades now. So how do we move that into the psyche so that, you know, maybe even at the lower educational levels of primary schools are being aware of these things? And is that a reasonable time to start?
Yeah, you brought up a very good point about the lack of public awareness, right? Because by the time the parents realize that they are a victim of this, it's like they are deep into it. And I just want to clarify, I interview over 700 cases, but our events reach is over 80,000.
Sure.
And we syndicate with a partner that have over 300,000 in their audience. So, and these are very engaged audience. So that tell you that the number is way, way bigger. And there's a study out there that shows that there's 22 million parents in the US alone that are victim of this. So, you know, the number is huge. It's not just a few hundred cases that I got a chance to personally did, you know, in-depth study into. But yeah, the lack of public awareness is a very big problem because, like you said, by the time, like at first when parents see the signs, they don't know what they're looking at.
Yeah, it's
most
too
of
late,
the time. Right. Most of the time they look and they're going, why is my child reacting this way? And why is my ex saying this? And why is this, you know, like all of this is coming as a shock. And even sometimes even multiple child protective agency call, like false allegation, multiple times, parents still don't know what they're looking at, right? Sometimes even there are many that never will even realize what they're looking at. They're just shocked. They're just absolutely in shock. And so it go back to the public awareness thing, because if we don't have public awareness, people are not going to see it early enough to prevent this. So we need to bring public awareness, and that is on two levels. In the short term, we want to bring public awareness today. In the long term, we need to create educational programs for children so that they can learn critical thinking and so that they know what to do to deal with broken family. Because the number of children that are going through divorced parents and separated parents or parents that are not married and things like that is huge. And the number of those children that are subjected to alienating behaviors is very high. I think there's a study by Dr. Klewa, I believe, showed that over 80% of the broken relationship will have some kind of alienating behaviors on the children. So with that, we need to, in the long term, we really need to create educational programs so that the children can learn very early on, so that we can have a new generation of people that are well aware that this is not okay, this sort of behavior is not okay, that you as a children, you don't have to choose, that you know how to handle when a parent misbehave, and that you can see when a parent misbehave that is not loved. It's actually abuse, right? So we need that in the long term. That's what we need to work on. And
so
we
that
have
would go down to the sorry that would also sort of that would also infiltrate from the children to the actual schools and the teachers, and even maybe sort of law enforcement at that low level of you know, domestic attendance, as it were.
Right. So
Would
yeah,
you
so
say?
that's no, I totally agree, and that's one of the program that we're working on right now behind the scene, is to develop an educational program for the school curriculum that we wanted to reach out to school district. We're still early stage on this, but we have a team that is working on this. And we need that kind of solutions for the long term, because we need a new generation that are not, like, we need to stop this cycle of abuse. We need a new generation that's not having broken childhood. We need to give them what they deserve, which is a pure childhood that they can just be children, you know. And then the other part in the short term is the public awareness right today, like you said, educational programs for the professionals, and then public awareness in general. And so, for example, we have right now, we have like 4 public awareness campaign that we're doing at Victim to Hero, and on Sunday you will see some of it. So one of the public awareness campaigns obviously is a documentary film that I mentioned. it's a very severe case of parental alienation, and it's ended tragically. So we wanted to really showcase that in a documentary film, so that we want the society to stop and look at it and go, oh my God, this problem is very serious and it can have this tragic ending. So that's one of our public awareness campaign. Another one we have is called Hero Songs Project. Now, the Hero Songs Project is where we have parents mailing to us, like, email or submitting through the website their writings. So it could be their letter to their children, or letter to themselves, diary, poem, or letters that they want the world to hear. And then we have artists from all around the world of all genres will pick different writings, and then they create song and record song from that. And that's why it's called the Hero Songs Project. And we have, for example, thank you. And we have an American Idol alum on the program. We have a Billboard pop artist on there. We have a top chart hip hop artist in New Zealand. We have a rock band that had played with Alice Cooper, for example. We have a country music artists. We have like all type of genres on that. So we have quite a large number of artists that participating, and we start to get songs back now. So we have a number of songs now in our collection. So that's another project that we're doing, because we really believe that in order to reach the public, we need to reach the public at the emotional level. We need to reach the heart. It's not a place where you talk about data and the science. With the public, we need the public to see the story, and we need them to hear it with their heart, through the music, through the film, through different things. So another project in the public awareness campaign is what we call the Boundless Love art installation. So with that, we're asking parents from all around the world, actually it's not just parents, anyone who believe in this cause, to mail us heart cutouts. So it could be paper heart cutouts, it could be plastic, we've seen glass, we've seen acrylic, any type of material heart cutouts, so heart shape up to 2 inches or 5 centimeters, it depends on where you are, but roughly about 2 inches. And make sure you have a hole on it, because we're going to hang it. And you can have any type of decoration on it, you can have any writing on it, as long as there's no personal information. So no full name, you can have first name, just no full name, no phone number, no photo, anything like that. So nothing personal identifying information. We have received over 200 hearts now from all around the world. And so we have an address in Los Angeles for people to mail it to us. When we get 1,000 hearts, we're gonna create an art installation that is 7 foot tall, and we're gonna try to get that to travel around so that we can bring public awareness. This is just some of the things that we do in terms of the public awareness, and that's the short-term things, right? So there's things like that. Yeah.
That's really, that's going to be so important. I think somebody said it on one of my podcasts before, is that we need the public to be outraged by what's going on. A real genuine outrage for the issue of parental alienation, because at the moment it's almost, it just feels so taboo, to have an issue with your family. People are talking about mental health issues, and people are talking about how they want, men to talk more about their mental health, etc. Yet nobody's willing to listen to one of the most important factors in men's lives, which is the alienation from their children, the unfairness around family courts, etc., how they are treated, the assumption that children will live with the mother, and the assumption that if the father doesn't see the children, well, he's a deadbeat dad. So this conversation around mental health feels superficial, and feels just like a tick box exercise if you are unwilling to consider the issue of parental alienation, or at least put it on the table, because it doesn't make sense otherwise. It feels just superficial. If that's is that fair to say? Is that how
Yeah,
you
no,
see it
I
as well?
totally agree with you. So when you say to people, right, you say, oh, parental alienation, people usually go, what is that? Nobody knows what that is. But if you explain and you say, okay, it's something that happens when, usually in a divorce or separation, one parent will influence or brainwash or manipulate the child to reject the other parent, or badmouth or something, and they would go, oh yeah, I seen that all the time, right? I seen that a lot. People see it all the time. But to them, like you said, it just kind of like, oh yeah, that's what happens. They don't realize the extreme pain, the extreme damage that it does. They don't realize how serious it is. And that's why our documentary film is highlighting this tragic case, because in this case, the alienator eventually kills the child. The child is a 10-year-old boy, and this child had so much future ahead of him that was robbed from him. And it's all because of parental alienation. And by the way, this case is not an isolated case at all. Just last week, we interviewed a dad that lost 3 children. The mother killed the 3 children just last week in Los Angeles, which is where I am. And then she went to try to hunt him down. Luckily, he was not at home. And the police got to her before she found him. So you're talking about, it kills, it destroys life. And I agree, the public doesn't get it, and we do need to bring it to a point where the public pause and go, oh my God, it's really serious. It's not just, I need to think differently about what's going on here, and I totally agree with that. The other thing I want to add was, I forgot to mention, the other public awareness campaign that we have is actually a film festival. So we have a film festival that is actually this Sunday that is dedicated to parental alienation, and it's called the Hollywood Silver Screen Festival Special Edition. So the Hollywood Silver Screen Festival is a festival that's been going on for 7 years, and it's an IMDb qualified festival. But this Wednesday is a special edition of that festival that only be on the topic of parental alienation. And we had over 600 submissions from all around the world, all the films about parental alienation and things like that. So this Sunday, we're going to pick maybe a dozen best one that we think from the submission, and we're going to open that to the public for viewing. So there's definitely, we need a lot of work. And it's true, like you said, how the conversation is, it seems superficial, because really the victim of parental alienation are silent. We are the invisible ones. And and I mentioned this before, when you look at any type of marginalized groups, you'll see some kind of resources. In the US anyway, I don't know about the UK, but in the US, you have the suicide hotline. You have the homeless shelter, you have the domestic violence shelter, you have, all type of things like that. But when it comes to parental alienation, the victim of parental alienation have nowhere to go. You cannot call anybody. And even, for example, with serious case of parental alienation, and then let's say the parent call the Child Protective Agency and say, hey, my child is being alienated. Well, they're not going to do anything because it doesn't fit in any kind of definition of child abuse. And that's a huge problem. So they go, well, there's no bruises, there's no punches, no anything. So, well, no, we're not going to do anything.
Yeah, so that almost sort of sweeps us right back to that timestamp of events. If they don't have the training for it, if they don't have the understanding for it, they're just simply not going to recognize it. So it really is a case of building that awareness. I really thank you for your eloquent way that you're delivering all of these things that you have, and I'm certainly conscious of time, etc. But is there anything else that you would like to make us aware of, before we wrap up? What has been an absolute pleasure and joy to meet you and discuss these things with you. I, for one, certainly would like to do some things in the future, and certainly keep in touch of what you're doing, and certainly express the podcasts that I'm doing as well.
Thank you so much. No, I mean, like, I could literally talk about this all day, all night. I mean, I literally been talking about this all day, all night for the last, over a year now since I started to work on this. So I really can just talk forever. I have so much to say. But no, I appreciate the opportunity to be here. Thank you for letting me share my thoughts on this. And for parents out there, I just want them to know that they are not alone, that there's solution out there, there's hope, because as long as holding on to hope, they have a chance of winning their children back.
Very well said, very well said. Well, Dr. Petra Deeter, thank you so much for taking the time out to come and join me on the Philip Maloney podcast. I wish you all the luck in the future. I, for one, will certainly be keeping an eye on activities around Victim to Hero, and I would encourage others to do so as well. I will be putting all of your contact details, etc., in the body of this, and who knows, maybe even next time we'll do a live stream of this event as well, where I will find the confidence to do so. Yeah, moving forward, thanks so much. Thank you for all your time. All the best with the future, and I'm definitely going to watch this space for Victim to Hero and all the campaigning that you're doing.
Thank you so much.
On a train, in a bus, in a car, on the way to your job. All alone with your kids, with your wife, or with your dog. You can listen anywhere, you can listen everywhere, to the Philip Maloney podcast.